review for Alien Covenant. Came out in 2017. I just saw this in the theater the other day. I was pretty excited to see this. I really enjoy the Alien franchise. The first two movies are pretty amazing. I mean, the Ridley Scott's original Alien is one of the best sci-fi thrillers ever. Pretty hard to debate that. And then what James Cameron did with the sequel Aliens was completely different, turned into an action film, and was a really good start to a franchise that started to kind of go off the rails after that. David Fincher did the third one, and there's a lot of studio interference with that, caused problems. The fourth one, Alien Resurrection, taken over by French director and kind of went in a different direction. And then it had a big break. They kind of did like the Alien vs. Predator stuff for a while, which wasn't super well received. And then 2012, Ridley Scott came back to the franchise and did Prometheus. But I did that review a while ago and wasn't really a big fan of Prometheus, and I've rewatched it a couple times since. I'm still not a big fan of it. I think it has more problems than good things going for it. It's a gorgeous movie. It looks gorgeous, looks great, but just too many dumb characters and too many plot holes. And I'm just talking about this because this movie is very much a sequel to Prometheus as opposed to I don't know. So I think they're getting themselves into trouble because what Ridley Scott wanted to do with Prometheus, I think, was just make a different movie and not make it an alien movie. Because if you took out a couple of things that are very tied into the alien universe, like the xenomorph, the actual aliens, and like the landing zone stuff, the ship, the space jockey, if you took those out, Prometheus is pretty much a completely different movie about people looking for their creators. And then I think he had to do more to connect to the alien universe because of studio requirements. And then this movie is very much a sequel to Prometheus. So in the movie, I'll just go over the plot quickly. There's a ship. It's a colonization mission. So it's a ship full of like almost 2,000 people. They're in hypersleep, frozen, and there's a bunch of embryos as well. And they're going to look for this new planet. Well, they know where it is. They're going to this new planet to colonize it. And something happens where there's like a crew of like 15 people that have to wake up. Something happens on the ship. They have to get up out of hypersleep, figure out what's wrong with the ship. It has to kind of regenerate its power with these solar sails, and something goes wrong with that, and so that causes them to wake up. And anyways, while they're up, they find a distress signal, and they see that there's a planet close, and it looks really habitable. So because of what happened in their cryo sleep, nobody really wants to go back into their sleep chambers, and they'd rather stay awake a couple weeks versus go back into sleep for like 7 more years. So they decide to go look at this planet, look for the distress signal, and because it's very, very similar to Earth, maybe they can have that be their main planet that they're going to take over and colonize. So that's the whole idea. And then they get there, and then things start to go bad. So for the cast members, the main people on the ship, Billy Crudup is the captain, Orem. Danny McBride is a pilot. He plays Tennessee. And then one of the main female leads is Catherine Waterston, is playing Daniels. And a couple other, I think there's a total of 15 crew members. One of the other ones is Damien Brashear, who I recognized. He was in Hateful Eight recently, and I've seen him in a lot of other stuff. And then most of the other people I didn't recognize. So that's the crew. And then when they get down to the planet, they notice it looks very habitable, and then right away some things start to go a little awry. Somebody gets sick, and then they run into... I forgot to say, also on the ship is an android. His name's Walter, and he looks familiar. He's played by Michael Fassbender. So Fassbender was in Prometheus as a different android, David. But then once this crew gets onto the planet, they end up running into David. And so that's where this really ties into Prometheus. We learn what happened since the end of that movie and to this point, because David was just ahead. Spoiler, was just ahead, and he is with Elizabeth Shaw, uh, played by Noomi Rapace in Prometheus, and he tells the crew what happened and what's going on with why they're getting attacked and what's happening. So, like, you pretty much have to see Prometheus to get what's going on here. Um, I don't know how much would make sense if you hadn't seen it. So then a lot of it deals with what David's been doing and what happened with all of that black goo that was in the canisters from Prometheus and the ships, and then what happened to this planet. It seemed like it maybe was inhabited by some other people, and all that. So I don't want to explain the whole plot because I think some of it's not completely mysterious, or it's not a big mystery, but I think knowing every single thing that happens would ruin some of it. So I'll just kind of leave it there. I thought the movie was okay. It has problems, but overall it was pretty entertaining. So one of the big things I think is just kind of funny in general is what they did with Catherine Waterston. I'd recognized her from a couple things, mainly Inherent Vice. She was in that, and a movie called The Babysitters, and she was in like the Fantastic Beast movie, which I haven't seen, but she's getting pretty well known. But what they do here isn't doing her any benefits. They just want you to make you think she is Ripley. They give her a really short, cropped haircut, like Sigourney Weaver had in some of the later movies, like Aliens, the second movie, and she's wearing like a gray tank top, running around, kind of trying to be the badass and whatever. She's fine in it, but I don't know, that haircut and what they're doing with that look just does not work. She's really attractive, and she has like a unique look, but she's really pretty. But that haircut is not doing her any benefits. Just looks kind of weird. Danny McBride's pretty good. A little bit of comic relief. You know, he's not full out doing his Kenny from Eastbound and Down. You know, he's not like super comic guy, but he's good. He's one of the more kind of memorable characters. He's got like a cowboy hat and a little more unique. So, but he does a good job. You don't see him doing a lot more dramatic roles. Billy Crudup's okay. He's a good actor. His character is kind of interesting, but they kind of waste parts of it. They talked about him having being very like religious or faith based, but then that just doesn't really go anywhere. One of the big things I thought was weird that could have been worse was the fact that this trip is full of, at least the crew is full of couples. So mostly to recolonize the new place that they're going to. But that's a good idea. You want couples, I guess. But at the same time, it could have turned into really problematic when people start to make irrational decisions when they're in a situation. They're going to this new planet. You have to think about quarantine things, especially with an alien movie. They could have started making really poor decisions and irrational decisions because of a significant other. Fortunately, they didn't do anything like too crazy with that, which is good. They kind of keep their wits about them. So that was good. I thought that could have gone awry, but it didn't. The things that I think are really good is definitely Michael Fassbender. He was the best part of Prometheus as David. And again, here he does a dual role. So he comes back as David when they land on the planet, and then he's Walter, a new android on the crew. And he's so good. Definitely, I think, saves this movie and makes it really, really interesting, especially what he's doing with just the whole kind of series in general and what he does to the franchise. I'm kind of skirting around the situation, but he's really good. Michael Fassbender is an amazing actor, so he's definitely worth a watch. I think the biggest problem that I had with this movie, it was good. I was entertained. I was enthralled by it. Never got bored. I thought it was pretty good. But the biggest things that are the most interesting aspects of this kind of world that's Ridley Scott's creating now was the engineers and David, and we get a lot of time with David here, kind of like how he's progressing as an android and kind of, you know, becoming very self-conscious, self-aware. But I think they could have spent even more time with him and the engineers, but instead they go really back to the rote plot that they're used to about a crew is in space, they're flying somewhere, they get a distress signal, they have to come and check it out, and then they get attacked by aliens. That's what the first movie is about. That was kind of the second movie. You know, it's like, we get it. That's what this franchise is based on, but you don't have to keep doing it in every single movie. And it's getting super repetitive, and I think they could have just gone in much more interesting directions. And apparently what I heard and read was that Ridley Scott wanted to do more of a look at what happened with David and Elizabeth Shaw as like a direct sequel to Prometheus, but then just ended up being more of this same thing that we're used to with the Alien franchise. So I think that's its biggest misstep for the franchise, and what they're doing with this is, we've seen it before. We've seen the crew that gets a distress signal and then goes, checks it out, and it's not a good idea. But it's getting really repetitive, and there's so much here. There's so much like potential to look into this kind of franchise, or this world that is being built, and they kind of waste it, which is too bad. There's also like a fight scene that was it was okay. It's kind of like a big fight scene kind of towards the end. I thought it could have been done better. The action is just not that great. But all of that said, I did think this was a little bit better than Prometheus, and it was much more enjoyable to watch. There's not as many dumb characters in it. There's too many dumb characters in Prometheus, I think, and this actually, I think, makes Prometheus better. So after watching this, it gives you a different perspective on that movie, and I think it actually would kind of boost the rating of Prometheus because this exists now. So that's kind of interesting. I know a lot of people haven't been a fan of this. All the reviews and ratings I've seen have not been too great with it. Kind of low, middling, kind of so-so. And I'm not giving it a great review, a great rating. So I'm going to give it a 3.25 out of 5. It's right in the middle there. I'd recommend it. I think definitely if you're already a big fan of the franchise, of the series, of the Alien series, you know, if you liked Prometheus, then you should definitely check this out. I think if you didn't like Prometheus, like I wasn't a big fan of it, this makes it better. I think it adds a lot to those two movies together. That's interesting. Definitely worth a watch for Fassbender's performance. He's great. So yeah, I don't know. Just kind of overall thoughts with the Alien series. Apparently, Ridley Scott wants to do even more sequels. Just kind of keep going with it, filling in things here and there. But I don't know. I don't know if he can do that or not. Especially if he's probably going to need to keep getting Fassbender back, and he's probably going to have to get paid a lot of money because he's really holding it together. An interesting addition to the series. I don't know if I'd recommend going to see it in the theater, but if you're an Alien fan, it's definitely not the worst in the series. So I think I'll just leave it there. So again, 3.25 out of 5. All right.